For Sunday, October 22nd, you found the Georgia Gang. Topping our agenda today, it's all over but the shouting. Amazon is going somewhere. We'll look at that question. In Atlanta, airport contracts are an issue in the mayor's race. And we're going to talk about kneeling and free speech. Kneel, stand, what should you do? Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us on this fall Sunday. We're going to begin with Amazon, where I guess the nation's municipal and state leadership are in a feeding frenzy over the bids to obtain the second headquarters of Amazon, 50,000 jobs, $5 billion in investment. We know Georgia did it rather imaginatively. Phil, Industry and Trade hand-delivered the bid to the Amazon headquarters in Seattle.
Well, that's right, and from what we've all seen, they've put together a very good package, and including a very well-done videotape with all of the assets that Georgia has, and of course, we've talked before about some great site locations. So, you know, we're in the running, but it's a tough competition.
Well, I tend to agree with, for the first time ever, with the columnist for the AJC who suggests that we're out of the running because we don't have mass transit in our suburbs. Now, Amazon did say buses, but their emphasis is on rail. So I think if Georgia's going to get it, it's going to be near the airport. I've just got this feeling. Sat the cab, Clayton County, Henry County.
Clayton County has got all of the ingredients, right? They've got the airport, they've got the rail, they've got all of it. They have the land, and so they're in great shape. But so too, I think, is the Gulch downtown. It's a great opportunity. It's centrally located. You've got a transportation hub there. It's a confluence of, I think, everything that Amazon is looking for. So we're really, surely Georgia is going to have a finalist in this contest.
What is Amazon's timetable? I don't know.
They said they would make a decision next year.
Okay.
Or at least maybe a decision about the finalist, I think.
And we don't know if it's one site or several sites. There's so many things we don't know. But it is interesting. It's also been quite interesting to read about the impact Amazon has had on Seattle. Makes me almost wonder if we really want it. But anyway, that's we don't know anything, so let's not go any further. Something we do know about is politics. We know about the mayor's race, and I was somewhat surprised this week to see Shirley Franklin come forward and ask that bidding be stopped on new airport contracts. That is a major story, and I tend to agree with her. The outgoing mayor shouldn't be rushing this.
Well, I think that she finally spoke up. She's a very respected voice. We all know that the airport has been a mess in terms of the vendor and the contracts, and the fact that you've had an airport manager resign a couple years ago because of the contracting mess. So I think it puts on notice Kasim Reed and his ally, the candidate for mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Alexis, it's pretty clear Shirley Franklin is not head over heels in love with her successor, Kasim Reed.
Well, as I think she said in that same interview, sometimes friends grow apart.
Yes. And
apparently that has been the case with the two of them. That started maybe notably in the last election when she supported a candidate for city council, Andre Dickens, and the mayor supported Lamar Willis, a different candidate. So they've just not seen eye to eye so much lately, but I mean, I think she didn't endorse another candidate either, and it was notably Caesar Mitchell who was among the candidates to first call for a freeze on contracts.
Now, you know, I think that's probably the more interesting development. She is a very respected figure in Atlanta, and she has yet to issue an endorsement. It's one thing to say, you know, at the 11th hour, don't do any more contracts. I don't think that there's a lot of time for that in any event, and certainly the mayor isn't rushing any contracts. Some have been sitting on his desk for months that he could have acted on and has not. And so there is absolutely no evidence that anything is being rushed here, but I find it far more interesting that she has endorsed, for instance, in city council races. She endorsed in the Michael Bond race. She endorsed Courtney English, but has yet to endorse in the mayor's race. That, to me, is more telling than anything else.
It certainly was a slap at the mayor, though. You have to admit that, Jeff. And the fact that we're in the middle of a corruption probe by the feds with regard to contracts, it just makes sense. And Caesar Mitchell started it. Mary Norwood endorsed it. And I think it's probably probably put a halt to Kasim Reed right now.
I don't think that it's put a halt to anybody, and I think that this mayor is, whether it's the pushing an Amazon headquarters in Atlanta or getting more jobs into the city of Atlanta, is going to continue to do his job until the last day, as well he should. He was elected to do so.
Now, Shirley Franklin could have endorsed Peter Amon, because after all, she brought him to City Hall.
That's right.
As chief of staff. He worked for Kasim for a while. I want to ask this question. Is Peter Amon inadvertently helping Mary Norwood? I know he's running against Mary Norwood for white votes on the north side, but by calling out Keisha Lance Bottoms for $300,000 in campaign contributions from city contractors, he is in effect helping Mary Norwood, who is the front runner.
Well, you know, I don't know that by attacking Keisha Lance Bottoms, Peter Amon is going to get her supporters.
Right.
He's more likely to get
to Caesar.
That's why I say he's helping Norwood.
He's more likely to get Mary's supporters and not hers. They don't have the same base of supporters. If you look at the crosstabs, Peter Amon isn't doing particularly well. I think less than 5% among African Americans. She's highest among African Americans. I don't think that these kinds of charges that we're hearing almost daily now are going to really resonate with her core supporters. I don't see how it's going to happen. So you may very well be right.
You see my point.
The net beneficiary may be Mary Norwood.
Or perhaps Caesar, like you say, who's got a kind of a black-white business coalition.
Potentially. I mean, but, and I do think, though, that the strategy is clearly, at least my interpretation of the mayor's support for Keisha, is to maintain the continuity of having a black mayor and having her in the runoff. You know, acknowledging that Mary Norwood does have the lead and getting her in, because the black women voters are
well, let me
strong.
say,
No, well, wait a minute. Let me say that about this lead business. I mean, this poll that we saw with them at 22 and 19, Mary Norwood at 22, Keisha Lance Bottoms at 19, was taken 2 or 3 weeks ago, and that was before the mayor's endorsement, before Keisha Lance Bottoms went on TV. I'm not so sure that Mary Norwood is still in the lead.
well, that's where I'm going. Mary Norwood, as we said last week, as Theron Johnson said, is on TV this week.
She is on TV this week, but Keisha Lance Bottoms has been on TV for the last couple of weeks.
I think they'll give Mary a bump.
But I think Mary gets a bump when
Yeah.
she's on television.
Right, and
Well-
Caesar's on TV too. He went up yesterday. I mean,
Right.
Thursday, I think.
That's right.
I have yet to see his
Peter's
commercials.
been up too. He did a
Jeff, I think it's
months.
going to be very fluid, but I do think, and I think we might all agree on this, that Mary Norwood is going to make the runoff because of just her grassroots support. And again, it goes back to grassroots.
Well, and one thing about Mary
turnout.
Norwood's spots, I think they're interesting because they're feel-good, not feel-good spots, they're fun. They're not weighty, there's no accusations in them, it just shows she works hard and has to have her shoes repaired all the time. I think that's kind of a cute thing, because she is truly, we all admit this, she's everywhere.
to Energizer Bunny.
Yeah, exactly. So that might help her, and I think you're right, she'll get another bump out of that, and I think we're headed for just what we've been saying, Mary Norwood and Keisha Lance Bottoms, in an epic clash of females and different goals and all kinds of things.
You know, but we've had some televised debates recently. The Atlanta Press Club did a
Yes.
debate. I think that there are going to be a couple more. It really gives the public an opportunity to look at these candidates who've been going at it daily, on a daily basis, right? But the public hasn't seen that. Now they can, and I think that what they'll see is a highly qualified field of mayoral
Yes.
candidates.
Well, we've
number
said
one.
that from the
Number
outset.
two, and a lot of these people are very, very thoughtful.
Yes.
I mean, and they may not be registering in the polls, but they do well on this stuff, and they do well in this debates. I mean, you talk about people.
They are thoughtful, I agree, but I think ethics is the cloud that hangs over this campaign, and who's going to be honest? I think that's going to be on the voters' minds. Black and white, and polls have showed that ethics are right up there along with transportation and education.
We got to get out, but when you have a U.S. prosecutor saying that corruption at City Hall is prolific, you're right. I think that has to be the #1 issue. All right, when we come back, by the way, the Emory annexation has been postponed until after the election. If there was any lingering question about whether those folks would be able to vote,
Forget about it.
It is now moot. So when we come back, we're going to do almost like a civics class. We're going to do a constitutional exercise in free speech, and it features cheerleaders and football players and Scrappy the Owl. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And remember to join our Facebook page, and remember we have our own YouTube channel, so you can catch the Georgia Gang after it airs, sometimes even before. Let's begin with a little state news, just to get it out of the way. It's quiet at the state because Governor Deal's in Europe, but the Supreme Court ruled last week that Georgia's certificate of need law is valid and will stand.
The Georgia Supreme Court.
Georgia, did I say that? Georgia Supreme Court? Yeah, SCOGA, not SCOTUS. But yeah, that's a, Jeff, I guess we've written about this for 30 years, Phil, you probably have too. It preserves monopolies.
It's
and
complicated,
it's anti-competition.
and it's difficult for the average citizen to understand, but a certificate of need says that if you are a healthcare facility, you have to go to the state and demonstrate a need on a patient basis to build a facility, whether it's a surgical center or a hospital or whatever. And what it does is it clamps down competition in this industry where we need clearly competition. Now, I don't think that the court was looking at it from that perspective. I'm sure that they were looking at it from a constitutional and a legal perspective, but from a competitive standpoint, the CON, the certificate of need, needs to go.
Yeah, it seems
It's
to
a
go
relic.
against the free
Well,
market.
I think you framed it correctly, and this fight isn't over. You've got
Well, no, it's
two
been around for
forces.
30 years.
Well, it's going to continue on, too.
Right.
You've got two forces with Jeff's argument and then the argument that, you know, this is, you can't have duplication of services. You know, that's the other side of the coin.
What they don't want is they don't want wealthy patients going for essentially private treatments from small clinics and doctors who have surgical practices and that sort of thing. They want them all funneled in to the big hospitals where they spread the cost around. I get that. And it is a tough debate. Now let's change the subject to the question of the First Amendment, free speech, and all that. And I think I'll start not at Kennesaw State, but with, so to speak, the management of Kennesaw State. Sam Olens, the president of the university, when confronted with the kneeling cheerleaders, did nothing. And we learned this week, Phil, that powerful legislator Earl Earhart and the powerful sheriff of Cobb County, Neil Warren, were texting Sam Olens and saying, "You better fix this, pal."
Or
Well,
not
let's give the
fix it
overview
in a certain way.
Let's give the overview. The President Olens of KSU had initially said that the athletic department had decided that because these cheerleaders, some of them had kneeled, that they were not going to be on the field anymore. They would stay off the field.
Well, now he
During the
also said
anthem.
that they didn't have anything to do with the kneeling.
And that's right. And this is where it gets complicated. And it's, you know, he said. And you're right about the, of course, I don't have a problem with anyone calling the president's office and airing their opinion on either way. I think that what's happened now is the Board of Regents has gotten involved and
As they should,
and has ordered a probe, is exactly what happened here. What's the timeline? And so I think that obviously Sam Olens is going to have to explain to the regents, and they're going to have to.
Explaining to do.
He's got some
Yeah.
explaining to do,
And
but
he has
so
an
does the
organ-
sheriff in Cobb, and so does Earl Earhart, trying to exert some undue influence over this issue. They should have let
What's
the
wrong
matter
with that?
alone.
They have a right to do that.
Because
They have a right to do it.
you have a college president there
A
who should be
public
able to make the
university.
decision of a public university, and he has an opportunity to teach his students a civic class.
Well, the
and the
president-
civic class is that you have a constitutional right to burn a flag. The United States Supreme Court has said so, and you surely have a constitutional right to kneel during the national
No,
anthem.
actually, we
I
have
don't
a
care
U.S. law.
How callous
Stop. It is
nationalism
in
under
the
this
US
president
It is in the
is.
U.S. Code that you must stand for the national anthem and you must place.
Have
one
you
hand
read
over
the
your
U.S.
heart.
Constitution?
I've quoted it.
I mean, I know
printed it
y'all
out
got
this
this
week.
crazy president in
Oh,
D.C.,
please.
but let me tell you what. These students have a First Amendment right to
Code.
kneel. What
No.
kind of lesson are we teaching them when we've
Not
got a
according to the
powerful
US
state
code.
legislator and a county sheriff trying to take
Now, how
away their
about Scrappy the
constitutional
Owl?
right?
Now, wait a minute. How about Scrappy the Owl?
Lord.
Well, let me just answer this. You know, the sheriff and anybody else has a right to speak out, just like protesters have a right to
Just
speak.
like the students do.
Now, I will say this.
Phil.
This is a workplace and a taxpayer-supported institution, so you can have rules.
It's an
But
educational
there was no
facility where we ought
rule.
to
There was
be
no
teaching
rule
them the rule of
stated.
law.
Well, I don't
Besides
disagree with that.
And that was one of the big concerns about him being appointed, being a politician, because politicians are always subject to being pressured.
I think
in one way or
President
another.
Olin should have just said, look, we're not going to have anybody kneel, and then rightly or wrongly go from there.
And keep the cheerleaders in the tunnel during the national anthem if you want. Scrappy the Owl is a different deal.
There is one
Scrappy
thing,
gets to wear the
guys,
costume.
to have a constitutional right,
So
and
he can take his
another thing
costume
to
away.
be able
Yes.
to actually exercise.
do
I
that.
want to defrock Scrappy the Owl
They
for
can do
taking
that.
part in the protest.
They can do that because he took the uniform without permission. So that's within the realm of the rules.
And I think the Board of Regents is
institution.
going to have to weigh in on a policy, and I think we're going to have to hear from
I
the
hope
governor.
they do more than the commissioner of the National Football League did.
Well, and that's
Roger
another story.
Goodell.
There should be a
Desert.
policy of non-interference.
Well,
Right.
U.S. Code, we stand for the national anthem.
U.S. code.
Just one more
Written
item.
by
Speaking of the NFL now, there's legislation brewing under the Gold Dome at the Capitol. Two prominent senators are saying that, look, a couple years ago the legislature did a exemption on the sales tax of NFL events like the Super Bowl. I think this is a huge shot across the bow. I believe it's going to be gaining support. You'll probably see a press conference this coming week by these senators to...
You don't pay sales tax if you buy a Super Bowl ticket,
that's right. That's right.
All right. When we come back, we will give a little bit of the tip of the hat to Zell Miller. He's going radio silent. We'll be right back.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
Before I turn to the former governor, Zell Miller, I think we should mention that Lynn Orletsky, the Cherokee County teacher who told students they couldn't wear their Make America Great Again t-shirts, has resigned from the school
She
system.
compared it to a swastika, so good riddance to
Oh,
her.
no, it was, and you're taking it out of context, Phil.
No.
It was following the Charlottesville race riot
What
in
difference does
support
that
of the
make?
Confederate monuments.
You mean when leftists attacked rightists?
No, when the Nazis marched in Charlottesville and
were
wanted to-
attacked.
well, no, when they provoked people and were supporting Confederate memorials that were sent up to terrorize
aside
black
from
people
all
in the
that,
United
she had
States.
no business
But
telling those
beyond that,
students
she
that.
was saying she was trying to prevent instigation of violence in her classroom by
Like
asking.
the cheerleaders who are kneeling and the
After
NFL
the
players who are
president said
kneeling.
there were good
the students
people on
have a
both
right to wear their
sides.
T-shirts.
You know,
the students
we
have a
should have
right
a
to wear the
policy.
And then
T-shirts. We
she-
should have a
And
policy.
she
Well, anyway,
received death
We should have a
threats.
principle.
She quit.
We should have a
She did
principle.
quit because she got death
policy.
threats.
She
got
quit.
death threats.
Now, it's sad. She said she was being threatened and so forth, and I certainly don't appreciate that.
The
but
principle
she
should
did
be that we have a First Amendment right to exercise freedom of expression,
she
which
abrogated.
includes wearing a T-shirt and kneeling during the national
So,
anthem.
are you in favor of the kids wearing their Confederate flag shirt? I thought you opposed that in schools.
All right.
Oh, you don't want
Yeah,
to say anything
I
about
do-
that.
Well,
No, I
that-
will say something about it
'cause that's
because
treason.
exactly. First of all, it's treasonous, and secondly,
Wait a minute, what happened to your First Amendment argument?
It's an invocation of violence.
There goes his First
there
Amendment
are some
argument.
limits to First
Oh,
Amendment
I'm
arguments.
Yes,
glad
you
he-
cannot yell
And the
fire in
Supreme
theater.
Court has delineated those. You should read these rules.
okay.
Anyway,
There are
the good
limits.
news is Lynn Orletsky is polishing up her resume, and she's going to look for another job. I would think she'd be a good fit for the city of Decatur schools. That's just my suggestion. Now, this week, our old friend Jim Galloway, a sometime panelist on this broadcast, wrote, I thought, just a poignant and brilliant column about Zell Miller at the behest of Zell Miller's family, and that the governor, former governor and former U.S. senator is suffering from severe form of Parkinson's disease and will exit public life. I thought that was a delicate way of saying it. And I was really touched by it because the idea of a quiet Zell Miller is inconceivable.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, he certainly was one of our greatest politicians in 100 years.
He was good for a quote. We all know that.
All right, and
One
he-
of our greatest politicians. I think he was one of our greatest statesmen. At least, I mean, I've been here for 3.5 decades. During that period of time, this is one of the figures that really stands out. in
How many
history
kids
and in
went to
terms of-
college because of Zell Miller?
How many kids have gone to college because
That's right.
of
The
Zell
Hope
Miller?
Scholarship
And the
is
Georgia
his
Lottery.
legacy.
And the lottery.
And the Georgia Lottery. He took a gamble.
finance
Alexis,
it.
you're absolutely correct. In 1990, he campaigned on it. And what has it been? a record. This is one of the best won lotteries in the country.
He was one of the most inclusive governors in our history. He elevated the first African American to the state Supreme Court and in other state constitutional offices. Man, Zell Miller was really groundbreaking in a lot of ways.
He's still with us. He's still with us.
I know he is.
Now, let's
but
make
as
that
he
clear,
goes
and
quiet,
we want to wish him well.
We want to wish him well, make him our winner.
Yeah, because he is, as you recall, faxed. Do you remember that term? He faxed a memorable item to the Georgia gang once, and aimed at me and Bill Shipp, mostly Shipp, and it was a hand drawing of a rattlesnake. Copulating.
Yeah, no, and we got lots of interesting messages from the senator and governor. Yeah.
All right. What about other races? I'd like to hear your thoughts real quickly on the city council president race. It's not getting any coverage. I sense from my perch in DeKalb that Alex Wan will be the front runner in that race for city council president. That C.T. Martin will not.
Well, I mean, they aren't the only two in the race. You also have Felicia Moore.
Felicia Moore, I think, has a shot.
And Felicia Moore has a shot.
Felicia Moore has a shot. She's been a watchdog for the taxpayers. I'm going to put in a word for her.
Yeah, she's been everywhere campaigning around the city as well.
Yeah.
It's like the mayor's race. You got 3 really qualified candidates in that race, but you also have some folks who are in the middle or the bottom of the pack in the mayor's race who ought to be in the president's race.
We got to get out. I want to do other races, but I want to do something about the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I pay an arm and a leg for a subscription. Really, the subscription price is just outrageous. I got an email this week, dear customer, saying they want to charge me an additional $2.99, or was it $3.99? $3.99 to deliver my Thanksgiving paper. I know it's a big fat paper. It's also their most profitable of the year. They want to charge me. I've already got a contract.
There's a reason.
For 365 days a year.
I want to explain something.
They're breaking a contract. It's
There's
fraudulent.
a reason it said, dear
I'm
customer.
going to Clark Howard.
There's a reason it said, dear customer. You're the only one who's still getting a hard copy.
Instead of dear customers. They're trying to tell you something.
It's not quite that bad. It's not quite that bad yet. All right, but I do. Governor's Office of Consumer Affairs, if you're listening. AJC, it's a scam. They're breaking my contract. All right, when we return, winners and losers.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And we'll begin that with Phil Kent.
Well, we had a little news last week, and my winner is going to be Eric Thomas. Now, who is Eric Thomas? He is the new Chief Turnaround Officer that's going to be certified this week with the State Board of Education. And everybody concerned about failing schools ought to be happy with this arrangement. We talked about former Mayor Shirley Franklin of Atlanta. I'm so glad she's my winner. She spoke out in the name of ethics and transparency, and let's have a moratorium on a lot of these contracts for next year. And you know, my loser of the week is that owner of that Conyers Shell station. He was giving out $5 worth of free gas to voters. You had to come into the station and prove you vote, and then there was mayoral candidate Ronnie Godwin's people right in there. Now, if you give free stuff to vote, that is a felony in the state of Georgia. Right. So let that be a lesson to everybody. No more free stuff for voting.
Pay for play.
All right, yes. Alexis?
Okay, I've got a bunch, but I'm going to go quickly as I can.
I hope you've got the new president of Morehouse, do you? Because I wanted to mention that.
No, you can do that. I'll let you do that. But that is one of them, but go ahead. Kathy Beamer, president of the International Women's Forum, celebrated the 30th anniversary of the forum this week along with their members, and Rosalind Carter made a special appearance. She's one of the founders, so congratulations there. And Isabella Alexander, she's an Emory University professor. She was honored by the Rainbow Push Group after Jesse Jackson rescued her from a prison in northern Africa, where she was doing a documentary on immigration from Africa to Europe with Black Africans seeking refugee status. And the AIB Network won an award from the Rainbow Push Group, the Humanitarian Award, for their coverage. And then Omar Ali is the president of AMI Steel, and he has launched a political action committee to make sure that political candidates honor the federal regulations for disadvantaged and socially disadvantaged and economically disadvantaged companies.
And what's the new president of Morehouse's name?
And the new president of Morehouse is, I can't remember.
He's from Georgetown, and I've just blanked on his name.
I did too.
Anyway,
I posted.
Georgetown.
All right, you go, Jeff.
Okay, all right. Well, Zell Miller, we mentioned Zell. He's going quiet, so we want him to go quiet. winner of the week, winner of the year, and he's done so much for the state of Georgia. Losers are Earl Earhart and the Cobb Sheriff, who are out there intervening in a manner that is none of their business.
It's my business.
Teaching. No, it isn't.
As a taxpayer, it's my business.
No, it's not. It's not. It's not. It is the right of these students to exercise. It's one thing to have a constitutional right. It's another thing to be able to exercise the constitutional right. Give them that right. It's a civics class. Let them learn it.
I have the right to complain.
Yes. Let me tell you what, in 30 years, they'll probably be Republicans. So just chill out. And my other winner is April Ross. This is the daughter of Kevin Ross, the assistant district attorney who was tragically shot, and she appeared on an episode called The Doctors.
Oh, good. Good for her. She's getting around. That's good. All right, I guess it's to me, of course, we want the Falcons to win tonight on Sunday Night Football against the New England Patriots. We will draw no comparisons to a certain football game that took place earlier this year. And the Atlanta United soccer team has a big one this afternoon against New York. They've clinched the playoffs, but it's a matter of seeding and perhaps getting a home match in the playoffs. And this afternoon, they're trying to break that league attendance record for soccer. We'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.
The opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the panelists appearing in this program.